The night before the wedding, Molly handed me back the ring. No eye contact. Just tears and a soft, "I don't know who you are anymore." Mama looked at me like I'd killed the neighbor's dog. And Lindsay? She wrapped her arm around Mama's shoulders and whispered something too soft to hear, but I could guess the flavor. Comforting. Reassuring. She always knew how to play the part. I didn't say a word. Not at the church. Not at the house. Not even when Daddy told me maybe it was best if I left for a while till things cooled down. It happened the week I was supposed to get married. I'd spent 2 years Savon, up to buy back a piece of the Harper family land, the North Ridge that backed up to the old Oak Line. Put in the offer, got the handshake from Old Man Kepler, and circled the closing date on the same calendar page as my wedding to Molly Jo Davenport. Small-town dream stuff. Barn ceremony. Barbecue reception. Honeymoon in the Smoky Mountains. Then my sister, Lindsay, lit the whole thing on fire with one well-placed lie. She didn't scream or shout or tear up a dress like in those dramatic TV shows. "No, sir," she whispered. Quiet, calculated. One conversation here, a concerned tear there. Told Molly I'd been talking to someone else. Told my parents she found troubling things on my laptop. Told the Keplers I was having money trouble. None of it was true. But in a town like Sycamore Ridge, reputation doesn't die with a bang. It drowns in murmurs. I just packed a bag. Threw it in the back of my '92 Silverado. Drove out of town with the windows down and my jaw clenched so tight it gave me headaches for 3 straight days. But let me tell you something. There's 2 kinds of men in this world. The ones who yell when they're wronged, and the ones who go quiet, real quiet, because they're already writing the first line of a plan. I've never been loud. And I sure as hell don't forget. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I've rebuilt my life from the red dirt up. Oil rigs in Midland paid well enough if you didn't mind the heat and the blood blisters. I saved every dime. Lived in a camper that smelled like diesel and old chili. Learned things, too, not just about pipe pressure and valve work, but how property transfers operate. How forgery gets buried under good OL boy handshakes. How to track digital footprints. How reputations can be scrubbed and, better yet, weaponized. I didn't drink. Didn't chase women. Didn't start fights. I just waited. Until last week, when I got a flyer in the mail. Coming soon, Harper Ridge Estates. Executive lots on family land. There it was, clear as daylight. Lindsay's face smiling on the back page, next to her shiny new husband, Councilman Trevor Hale, local prince of politics and real estate. They'd named the development after the same ridge I tried to buy. The same one Lindsay sabotaged just so she could flip it for a profit later. That was the moment I knew. It was time to come home. I pulled into Sycamore Ridge right before sundown. The town hadn't changed much. Still one gas station with broken card readers. Still one church with a marquee that read, "God doesn't do take-backs." Still the same folks nodding at stoplights, gossiping behind paper coffee cups. My name still got a few sideways glances. That was fine. I didn't come back to clear my name. I came back to settle accounts. And I wasn't bringing fire and brimstone. I was bringing paperwork. Strategy. Leverage. Because revenge? Real revenge? It don't shout. It walks through the front door, shakes your hand, smiles nice for the neighbors, and takes everything you care about, piece by quiet piece. Now don't get me wrong, I wasn't always this cold. Used to be a lot more hopeful. Thought if you worked hard, told the truth, and kept your boots clean at Sunday service, life would sort itself out. But family has a way of teaching you hard lessons with soft smiles. Before it all went sideways, me and Lindsay actually got along decent. Grew up on the same dirt, climbed the same hay bales, even bailed each other out of more than one stupid teenage stunt. She was a little sharper than me, quick with a story, quicker with a smile. Folks liked her. Trusted her. I never realized how dangerous that could be. The Harper land wasn't just acreage, it was legacy. 6 generations deep. My great-great-granddaddy helped plant the first post oak on that ridge, back when this county was still more cows than cars. When our folks started falling behind on taxes, I scraped together everything I had to keep it floating. Paid off one lien at a time. Then Grandpa left me the deed to the North Ridge in his will, plain as day, signed, notarized, stuck in his old hunting safe under the floorboards of the barn. I told Lindsay the day I got it. Even showed her the damn thing proud, like a kid with a first paycheck. She smiled real sweet and said, "You always were Grandpa's favorite." Didn't think much of it at the time. Wish I had. That was 2 months before the wedding. At the time, I was neck-deep in drywall work and doing weekend prep on the house Molly and I were setting up. Wasn't glamorous, but it had good bones, fixer-upper with a wraparound porch and just enough shade for a swing. Molly was the kind of girl you planned a future with. Teacher at the elementary school. Big on sweet tea, Sunday brunch, and rescuing dogs with crooked tails. We weren't fireworks and violins, more like slow-burn coffee and comfort. She loved Lindsay. Thought she was brilliant. Funny. A force of nature, she once said. And Lindsay? Well, she played the part of best friend sister real well. Through the bridal shower. Helped pick out the flowers. Even offered to help file some of the title paperwork on the land, so you don't have to deal with all the legal junk while planning a wedding. I let her. Biggest mistake I ever made. Week before the wedding, I noticed something was off. Kepler stopped returning my calls about the land. Molly got distant. Cold. Mama stopped by with one of those church casseroles and asked, "Is everything all right between you and your fiancé?" Didn't understand what was happening until it all landed at once. Day before the wedding, I got a call from the title office. "Clay," the gal said, "we've got a hiccup on that Harper Ridge parcel. Turns out it was signed over already." I damn near dropped the phone. Signed over by who? I asked. There was a pause. You. No, I didn't, I said flat as iron. Well, she sighed. Someone filed it in your name. Signatures match, but the notary's from out of state, and, well, it's a mess. I drove straight there. And sure enough, someone had forged my name. The land had been legally transferred to Lindsay's new LLC. She was already in talks with the city to rezone it. She knew every step I'd taken, every bank account, every call I made to the county clerk. And she used all of it to outflank me like a rattlesnake under the porch. I went straight to Molly. Tried to explain. She wouldn't even look me in the eye. Said Lindsay told her the truth. That I'd been hiding money problems. That I'd tried to flip the land behind her back to cover gambling debt. Gambling. I don't even buy scratch-offs. But the seeds were planted deep, and Molly wasn't in the mood to check the soil. She gave me the ring back without a word. Not even a tear. My parents weren't any better. Mama said, "You broke her heart, Clay." Daddy just shook his head like I was a stray mutt that had bit a neighbor. And Lindsay? Oh. Lindsay stood there in her pale blue sundress, arms folded across her chest, and said with a half-smile, "Maybe next time, you'll read the fine print." That was it. That was the day I packed my truck, rolled out of Sycamore Ridge, and didn't look back. Not for a while, anyway. Now, fast forward 3 years and I'm back. But not as some tail between the legs prodigal. I didn't come back for forgiveness. I came back to repossess my future. And I wasn't alone this time. Over the years, I collected more than bruised pride and calloused hands. I had contacts in real estate law, friends in code enforcement, and a whole damn file on Lindsay's real estate empire. Every loan, every cut-corner permit, every backroom deal. Her world looked real pretty on the surface. But I knew exactly where the foundation cracks ran. And I was fixin' to slide a crowbar right into the biggest one. The thing about revenge is, if you do it loud, folks remember the noise. But if you do it clever, they remember your name. I rolled back into Sycamore Ridge with 2 things, a truck that coughed louder than it ran, and a plan carved clean down the middle like a 2x4 on a table saw. See, most folks go for fire and fury. Confront the enemy. Demand apologies. Maybe swing a punch or two. But I've never been that kind of man. I'm a carpenter by trade. I know how to take something broken, measure it twice, cut it once, and make it right again. Quiet. Careful. Deliberate. So when I pulled up to the cheap rental cabin just south of town, the one that smelled like mildew and dead ambition, I didn't call anyone. Didn't post on Facebook. Just cracked open a lukewarm beer, spread out my folder full of documents across the tiny Formica table, and got to work. Step 1. Reacquire the land. Lindsay's LLC, Ridge Spark Holdings, had bought the Ridge parcel outright using what looked like forged paperwork in my name, plus a loan backed by her husband's campaign donors. But I'd done my homework. The notary listed on the title transfer was already under investigation in Arkansas for stamping documents without proper ID. That meant the sale was technically contestable. Didn't matter if it stuck in court yet. All I needed was enough stink on the deed to scare off anyone sniffing around for development. I typed up a formal notice of title dispute, signed it, and drove it straight to the county clerk's office at 8:01 the next morning. The girl behind the counter blinked at me. "Mr. Harper?" "That's right," I said, calm as an early frost. You're back." "Never really left," I lied with a slow smile. She stamped it, logged it, and just like that, every property search tied to Ridge Spark Holdings now had a big red flag next to it. Lindsay's foundation had its first crack. Step 2. Isolate the target. Next stop? The Hearth and Timber Podcast. Now, you might not expect a small-town guy like me to dabble in modern media, but 3 years in the oil fields gave me more time than I knew what to do with. Between YouTube, podcasts, and one very long friendship with a legal consultant named Jenny from Houston, I built up a modest little podcast of my own, anonymous, rural-focused, and just low-profile enough to stay under the radar. Last month, I'd done an episode on fake farmland LLCs and how they're used to siphon campaign donations and hide bad zoning deals. It got traction with the right crowd, local watchdog groups, a couple nosy college kids on Twitter, and even a nosier state auditor's assistant. Guess who I featured as an anonymous example? Yep, Ridge Spark Holdings. Didn't mention Sycamore Ridge by name, of course. I was careful, but I included just enough clues, a fictionalized version of the land theft, a few figures that lined up a little too well, and a doctored aerial shot that looked real familiar if you happened to live around here. I wasn't accusing Lindsay directly. I was just stirring the pot. And when people get curious, they start poking. And when they poke, they find things. Things like delayed permit filings, or missing historical surveys, or payments that look a whole lot like bribes if you squint just right. Step 3. Divide and conquer. Lindsay's power didn't come from charm alone. It came from who she was married to. Trevor Hale, city councilman, former real estate agent, part-time yoga coach, and full-time greasy politician. The man looked like he'd been sculpted from spray tanned and boat loans. I needed a wedge between them. And lucky me, I had one. Back when I was still trying to get my land back the first time, I'd hired a private investigator out of Memphis. At the time, I couldn't afford much more than a background check and a handshake, but the guy owed me a favor now. So I called him up. Trevor Hale, I said. There was a pause on the line. Then a chuckle. That oily bastard still breathing? I'll dig. You'll have mail in a week. The next morning, I saw it. My first proof the storm was coming. A handmade sign taped to the front gate of the Ridge property. Notice, active legal dispute in progress. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Not from me. From them. I grinned so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Because fear? Fear makes people overreact. And every time they flinch, I mark the spot to hit next. By the end of that week, Ridge Spark Holdings had 3 frozen permit applications, 2 investors quietly backing out, 1 code enforcement inspection scheduled at random, and a very nervous city councilman askin around town if anyone knew where I was staying. I didn't respond, didn't return calls, didn't show my face at church. I just kept making noise from the shadows. Because when you're setting the stage for a fireworks show, you don't light the fuse in daylight. You wait for night. They say small towns run on gas and gossip. Well, I'd already poured the gas. Now it was time to strike the match. The first real ripple hit on a Thursday. Old Joe Tyndall owns the diner and makes a mean sausage gravy, asked a real casual question while pouring my coffee. Hey, Clay, that your name on that dispute paperwork over on Ridge Hill? I nodded. Didn't blink. Joe's the kind of man who asks once, listens twice, and tells everyone by lunchtime. Perfect. By the end of the day, I'd had 3 more quiet run-ins, Mrs. Kettle from the garden club, Carl from the post office, and Miss Donna at the gas station, who slid me a free scratch ticket, just 'cause. That's how you know the tide's tinning. Not with headlines. With free biscuits and long glances. Now, while the locals started buzzing, I slipped over to City Hall. Not to cause a scene, Lord no. Just dropped in like a polite ghost and requested a copy of all zoning changes, survey plans, and environmental filings tied to Ridge Spark Holdings. Just doing a little light reading, I told the clerk. He looked confused, then a little nervous. Then he stamped the file and handed it over like it was radioactive. He wasn't wrong. That same day, my man in Memphis sent over the goods. Trevor Hale, councilman, husband, Instagram model on weekends, had more skeletons than a Halloween aisle. Turns out, 5 years back, Trevor misfiled campaign funds and used a portion of his donations to purchase a fishing cabin in Arkansas that just so happened to sit under his cousin's name. Illegal? Not quite. Immoral? Oh, buddy. Like hot sauce and communion wine. But even better, there were pictures. Trevor at the lake house with a woman who wasn't Lindsay. Blonde. Maybe early 20s. Clearly not just fishing. Now I ain't one for talking the low road. But I'll sure as hell pave it if someone else is gonna ride it. So I made another move. Had an envelope of concerns dropped, anonymously, in the mailbox of one Laura Whitaker, who just so happens to write for the county paper. I knew Laura. She dated my cousin back in high school. She's honest, curious, and has a real bone to pick with local corruption. Inside the envelope, photocopies of the lake house deed, a list of Ridge Sparks building violations, and a teaser paragraph about the curious disappearance of Harper family property rights. Didn't need to sign it. Folks like Laura know how to dig. I just handed her a shovel. By Friday, Lindsay knew something was wrong. You could tell by the way she stormed out of the town planning meeting, heels clicking, like gunshots, face redder than a sunburned tomato. I watched from across the street. Didn't wave. Just tipped my cap and walked the other way. That night, she tried to call. Blocked. Then Mama called. I let it ring. She left a voicemail, honey. Maybe you could come by, clear things up. No thanks. This wasn't a family meeting. This was a reckoning. And the next chapter of that reckoning was gonna be public. Saturday morning, I went to the farmer's market, not to shop, but to listen. The talk was louder now. Folks weren't whispering. They were outright saying things. You hear the Ridge project's under legal review? Someone said the permits are bunk. Did you see that article in the local blog? Talking about stolen land. And my personal favorite. Did y'all know Lindsay's husband's been fishing real far from home? I didn't start those rumors. I just pointed him in the right direction and let him run. And run they did. That evening, I stopped by the Ridge. There was a new sign on the fence. Construction delayed. Site under review. No crew. No trucks. No laughter from Lindsay's smug little corner office trailer. Just wind, dust, and the rustle of dry grass. I leaned on the hood of my truck, cracked open a bottle of tea, and watched the sun set over the land they thought they could steal from me. One piece at a time, her empire was buckling. And I was just getting warmed up. Now, revenge ain't just about talking things back. It's about making sure the folks who took from you know exactly why it's all falling apart, and watching them scramble to keep the walls up as you pull the nails out one by one. I started the week real casual, fresh shirt, clean shave, polite hello at the feed store. But underneath it all, I was setting the table for a real nasty supper. I'd spent the last month working in the shadows, but now, it was time to pull back the curtain a little. Just enough for Lindsay to start guessing where the knife would come from next. I dropped in on Molly first. Now don't get ahead of me. I wasn't there to rekindle nothing. I knew better than to throw a match at a pile of old feelings. But there was something I needed to say. And more importantly, something she needed to see. She was working late at the library, just like always, glasses slid down her nose, surrounded by kids' storybooks and that same thermos of herbal tea she used to brew every night. I stepped inside, gave her a polite nod, and said, "Got a minute?" She hesitated, long enough that I thought she might just turn and walk. But instead, she waved me over to one of those low reading tables. I sat, laid a manila folder between us. Didn't say a word. She opened it. Inside, printouts of the property title transfer, forged signature, fake notary, the Ridge Spark LLC paperwork. Bank statements that showed Lindsay's company received a loan 3 days after the signature went through. And a snapshot of my original deed, dated a full year earlier. Molly stared at it for a good long while, then looked up at me, tears just starting to sting behind her eyes. "Why didn't you show me this back then?" she whispered. "Because you were listening to her lies louder than you ever listened to my truth," I said, steady as stone. No anger, just the kind of tired truth that settles in your chest like cold ash. She reached across the table, like she wanted to say something or maybe take my hand. But I stood, tipped my hat, and left her there with the truth burning holes in her conscience. That same night, I mailed a similar folder, no return address, to the City Ethics Board, signed with a name that didn't exist and a P.O. box in another county. Inside, enough material to raise eyebrows from here to the state capitol. Financial inconsistencies, conflict of interest charts, even a little anonymous statement about campaign favors being exchanged for land approvals. Trevor Hale's name showed up 4 times. I didn't need charges, just tension. Enough to make councilmen start asking questions they didn't want to know the answers to. 2 days later, the county paper ran a front-page story. Real estate queen under fire. Ridge Sparks dealings questioned amid ethics concerns. No name called me out, but you could damn sure see my fingerprints on the walls. Lindsay's phone started ringing off the hook. City Hall called a special session. Her face, once shiny and smug and splashed across every billboard, disappeared faster than dollar bills in a bad poker game. And just like that, the cracks in her world turned into chasms. Now, you might think this was the moment I kicked my boots up. Nope. This was the moment I turned the screws. I showed up at one of those fancy investment brunches Lindsay used to host at the wine bar on Main. Wore a clean flannel, ironed jeans, even shaved close enough you couldn't mistake me for a day laborer. Walked in like I belonged. The room went quiet. I looked right at Lindsay, raised my glass of water, and said, "Didn't expect to see me again, huh?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. Just stared like she'd seen a ghost. I smiled, tipped my glass, and walked out. Didn't need to say another word. Everyone in that room would do the talking for me by noon. By the end of the week, her husband was packing a suitcase. Guess the lake house mistress got tired of being the side dish. Trevor was out, gone with a fancy leather bag and his Instagram account mysteriously scrubbed of all #couplegoals photos. And Lindsay? Well, she finally cracked. Called me. Left a voicemail. "You win. Is that what you wanted? You win, Clay. You ruined everything." I didn't call back. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. If you back a fox into a corner, it'll either bite or bolt. But if you corner Lindsay Harper, she tries to outtalk the bullet. It didn't take long for her to stop playing defense and start looking for blood. She started with the mayor, trying to rally support, claiming the ethics report was politically motivated. Didn't work. Then she went after the paper, calling it tabloid trash. Didn't work either, mostly because she was using the same press that used to run her wedding photos and ribbon cuttings. Those folks don't forget when you stop buying at space. By the time she got to me, she was desperate. She cornered me one morning outside the old feed store. I'd just come out with a bag of cracked corn and a receipt that still smelled like dust and diesel. She stepped right in front of me, hair perfect, makeup done like she was still the queen of Ridge Hill. But her eyes? Wild. Like a possum caught under the porch light. "You think this is gonna fix anything?" she hissed. Tearing me down, dragging Trevor's name through the mud, getting the whole damn town whispering. "What's that make you, Clay?" "Righteous." I set the bag in the truck bed and leaned back against the tailgate, arms crossed. "Nope," I said. "Don't need to be righteous. Just need to be right." She looked like she wanted to spit. "I did what I had to do," she snapped. "That land was gonna rot. You didn't have the money, the experience. That land was mine." I cut her off, low and firm. "Grandpa left it to me. You knew it. You smiled in my face and filed fake paperwork the same week you helped me pick out wedding flowers." Her lips pressed tight. "I built something out of this town," she said. "You think folks are going to just turn their backs because of a few rumors?" I tilted my head. "No," I said. "They'll turn their backs because of what's coming next." She flinched at that. Didn't know yet. But she would. See, while she was busy trying to claw her way back to respectability, I'd been setting the last pieces of the trap. Remember that Memphis PI? He found more than lake house shenanigans. He found a string of payments, quiet little ones, made from Ridge Spark to a shell account that tied back to Councilman Hale's campaign staff. On paper, it looked like consulting work. But a closer look? It smelled more like payoffs. Little greased wheels to get those permits passed quicker, the rezoning slid through with less fuss. All of it. Traceable. And very illegal. And guess who I passed it to? Not the sheriff. Not the paper. The state auditor. I'd emailed a nice little package with timelines, transaction numbers, even a confidential source note about the land sale fraud. Didn't take long. I got a call back the next afternoon. "Mr. Harper," the woman said, polite but sharp as a switchblade, "we'd like to ask you a few questions. We believe you may be the victim of criminal property fraud." Victim? That word tasted good. And just for good measure, I made one last play my favorite. I called the bank that handled the Ridge Spark development loan. No, I didn't lie. I just asked questions. "Say," I said, "if a company secured a loan using misrepresented property rights, would that trigger an investigation?" Long pause on the line. "Sir," the man said carefully, "is there a particular account you're referring to?" I gave him the LLC number. Another pause. "Well," he said after a moment, "if that's the case, yes, it could. Even if the project's already in development? Especially if the project's in default." I hung up, whistling. Because guess what? With permits frozen, investors gone, and no construction happening, that loan was about to be called in. And Lindsay? She didn't have squat to cover it. 3 days later, I heard the yelling before I even pulled into town. Lindsay and Trevor, standing outside City Hall, screaming at each other like a couple of cats in a burlap sack. I didn't stop. Just cruised past, slow and easy, arm hanging out the window like I had nowhere particular to be. Trevor caught my eye. I gave him a wink. He looked like he might pass out. Lindsay? She turned bright red. But she didn't say a word. Because deep down, she knew. She wasn't just losing the battle. She'd already lost the war. Some traps don't go off with a bang. They wait, tight as wire, silent. Then one day, snap, and the ones who thought they were safe find themselves hanging upside down by their own damn rope. That was the day Lindsay Harper stopped being the golden girl of Sycamore Ridge and started being a lesson. The headlines came first, not from our sleepy local rag, but from state press, folks who smelled blood and followed the trail all the way down to Ridge Hill. Councilman implicated in land fraud scandal. Development empire built on stolen property? Siblings at war over inheritance. Legal storm brewing. Trevor's name was front and center. So was the LLC. And buried halfway through the article, a quiet quote from a local source said the original deed belonged to me. Now, I didn't speak to reporters. Didn't need to. I let the paperwork do the talking. Grandpa's original will. The forged deed. The notary's disciplinary records. Every single nail was lined up. And brother, I had the hammer. Within 48 hours, the city council issued a formal pause on all pending RidgeSpark contracts. Trevor stepped down from his position, citing health concerns. Translation: he saw the iceberg and dove headfirst into a lifeboat. But the real fireworks? That came at the town hall meeting. See, once a month, they hold these little community updates in the high school gym. Used to be about potholes and 4th of July parades. But that night, it was standing room only. Every seat packed. Air thick with humidity and curiosity. You could feel the tension buzzing off folks like sweat off a cattle dog. I showed up 5 minutes late. Didn't sneak in. Didn't sit in the back. I walked straight up the center aisle and stood against the side wall, arms crossed, eyes locked on the front table where Lindsay sat. Her face was pale. Her lawyer, some stiff out of Nashville, tried to look confident, but you could see the panic behind his cheap suit buttons. The mayor opened the floor to community concerns. A few folks asked about traffic lights and water pressure. Then a little old lady named Bernice stood up, bless her, and said loud enough to rattle the rafters. I just want to know if it's true someone stole land from their own brother and built a whole development on it. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to Lindsay. She started to speak, something about miscommunication and family matters, but I stepped forward. Didn't yell. Didn't raise my hand. Just said, plain as an oak board. The land was mine. Grandpa left it to me. I've got the documents, the dates, and the damn fingerprints. It was stolen, sold, and used to fund a scam that the whole town's name got tied to. Folks gasped. One guy even muttered, Lord have mercy, like we were in a courtroom drama. Lindsay stood up. You don't understand how business works, she snapped, voice cracking. I was protecting the family. You were gone. You weren't. Don't, I said, pointing at her, steady as a nail gun. Don't you dare pretend this was about family. You did this for money. You did this for status. And now you're going to lose everything you build off my back. And right then, the mayor leaned into his mic and said, We'll be reviewing all development contracts immediately. Meeting adjourned. As folks filed out, the whisper started. She forged it. Wasn't even her land? I heard her husband's got another house in Arkansas. And Lindsay? She didn't look like royalty anymore. She looked like a dog that chased too many cars and got hit by all of them. By the next morning, RidgeSpark was dead in the water. Bank loans defaulted. Creditors circling like buzzards. Trevor? Disappeared faster than a paycheck at a casino. And me? I filed my final legal motion. Petition for full property reclamation with restitution. Sheriff's office stamped it. State signed off. Lawyer said, it's airtight, Clay. I just nodded. Because this was earned. You ever watch a storm roll in over dry pasture? It don't hit all at once. First the sky bruises. Then the wind shifts. Then the smell, ozone, rain, maybe a little fear crawls down your neck like a spider. And by the time the thunder hits, it's already too late to run. That's what happened to Lindsay Harper. The thunder had her name on it. First came the bank seizure notice. She walked into her downtown office on a Tuesday morning, iced coffee in one hand, phone to her ear, and saw the bright orange sticker slapped across the glass. Property in default, closed pending investigation. Her secretary? Gone. Her calendar? Wiped. Her investors? Silent. Turns out, when you build your empire on fraud, you don't just lose your money, You lose every damn person who smiled at you when times were good. Trevor drained the accounts before he disappeared. Even pawned her ring, if the rumors were true. The Rich Spark checking account was emptier than a Baptist liquor cabinet. And the debt? Oh, it was plentiful. Meanwhile, my court filing made its way up the chain. The petition wasn't just for title reversal, it included damages. Back taxes she dodged by transferring property under a sham LLC. Fraudulent notary use. Emotional distress. My lawyer's idea, not mine. But hell, I didn't argue. And loss of opportunity from the original Kepler deal I was supposed to close. The hearing was public. Held in that old red brick courthouse next to the bait shop and across from the barbecue joint. And boy, did folks show up. Not because they were required. Because they wanted to see it. The fall. I sat at the front table with my attorney, Commas Creek Water. Lindsay walked in late, alone, hair pulled tight, sunglasses on indoors like she was trying to disappear inside him. Didn't work. The judge, bless him, took one look at the documents, the timestamps, the original deed, and said, "Well, Ms. Harper, this is what we call a slam dunk. But you ain't holding the ball." She tried to speak. Tried to weep. Tried to twist the whole thing into some tragic family misunderstanding. Judge Whitmore wasn't having it. "I don't care if you call it a misunderstanding or a marshmallow roast," he said. "It's fraud. And you're going to answer for it." Banged the gavel. Ruled in my favor. Awarded the land back to me, clean title, full rights. Slapped her with a restitution judgment so big it probably needed its own zip code. She sat there, blinking slow, like someone just shot her horse. 2 days later, the sheriff's department escorted her off the property. My property. She came kicking and screaming, called it a witch hunt, told the deputies I was a bitter, jealous loser who tricked everyone. They didn't even flinch. Just loaded her boxes, what little she had left, into the bed of a borrowed pickup and told her, "Ma'am, you're trespassing. Time to go." I didn't speak. Didn't wave. Just stood on the porch, arms folded, boots planted in my grandfather's dirt. She saw me. Of course she did. And in that moment, she didn't see a brother. She saw a consequence. The ridge was mine again. The soil, the house, the old windmill creaking in the breeze, all of it returned. Not by mercy. Not by luck. By design. And the best part? I didn't shout. I didn't brag. I didn't throw a party or run her name through the mud. I let the truth do all the heavy lifting. Because revenge? Real revenge? Ain't about fire and noise. It's about quiet ownership. About talking back what's yours and making damn sure the ones who wronged you never forget how they lost it.